So tiny. That's what she said. Hello and thank you for clicking on this video where I'll be sharing my experience on another budget DAP entry, but this time from Shanling, and this is the M0 Pro. Before we dive deeper into this, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Melbourne Hi-Fi Audio for sending this unit for me to test and share my experience with all of you. But this is a loaner unit and will be sent back. However, as always, all thoughts and opinions are my own and are not influenced by any parties. If you've been enjoying my content, please do consider hitting that like and subscribe button. That will help the channel a lot and I appreciate your support. Accessories are pretty straightforward. You'll be greeted by the device itself, a USB-C charging cable, and some manuals with an additional screen protector. There's even some history brochure that comes along with the manual. The device itself is really small. This unit comes in this dark moss green, but with that powder coated finish, it looks really sleek and it's a very simple design. A volume knob on the top right corner with grooves, and at the bottom a USB-C port, a 3.5mm output, and a micro SD slot, and nothing else. So a very clean, sleek design and a compact form factor. Just bringing in some other devices like the Snow Sky Echo Mini and the Hebe R1. These are all rather compact DAPs already, but the M0 Pro is just that much more compact compared to those devices. So portability is taken by the M0 Pro. Kinda reminds me of the days of the 6th generation Ipod Nano, which I'm pretty sure where this device is taking reference from, and this is also using touchscreen. But I feel some of the icons are a little bit too small for this form factor. We'll talk about more later, but for now let's go through the interface since we're here. Turning on the device, you'll be greeted by the opening screensaver. Swiping up brings up the quick menu where you can toggle Bluetooth mode, shuffle mode, the brightness, and the media controls, whether to pause and play or forward and backwards track. In the main interface, you have the now playing function, my music function, folders, playback settings, and this is where you can adjust the max volume, the default volume, the artist list display, the resume mode, gapless setting, EQ setting, and this is where the money is. They give you 3 custom settings for you to play around and save with a 10-band EQ. Yep, you heard me right. Built-in EQ features. If that's not enough and you don't like to bust your brain tinkering with EQ, they even give you 12 different presets. Yep, there's bass and EX bass. I mean, I like my EQ, and it's always nice when a device gives you options to play around with your gear and make your music just that bit more fun. You can toggle the gain setting, replay gain, filter, which there's only 2 options to choose from, adjust channel balance, toggle play mode where you can choose between list play, repeat track, or shuffle. Then you have a dedicated system setting where you can update your music whenever you add new music into your SD card, Bluetooth mode where you can use to connect to your favorite TWS, turning on sync link, adjust the brightness from 0 to 100, but it's more like 0 to 10 level of brightness. You can even adjust when the screen goes off, when it goes idle, the sleep timer of this device, the USB mode, because you can use this device as a dongle. So in this setting, you can toggle which function for when the USB-C is plugged in, for just storage access, plain charging, or as a DAC. And it's as simple as plugging this in and it'll detect and function as a DAC. I'm not sure if it charges the device as you're using it as a dongle. If so, great. If not, well, you're limited to its battery capacity. Going back to settings, you can adjust the clock, see how easy it is without needing to use buttons. No dig on the Echo Mini though, just saying it's more convenient sometimes with touchscreen. You can toggle whether to have a lock screen, you've got volume lock toggle, you even have toggle for the wheel shortcuts, so double click or triple click does what, but it's limited to music track controls. DSD mode, adjusting the volume to fixed or variable, meaning either the volume on your computer when connected as a DAC can be adjusted by Windows or this device depending on which you pick. Toggle in vehicle mode, changing the theme so there are different themes to choose from, but of course black is the way to go for me. The language toggle, and there's plenty of selections to choose from, about setting which tells you information about the device, and factory setting, reset, and system update. So plenty of features baked into this little tiny device. However, it's not all sunshine and rainbow, so let's just go through some of the caveats I found from my experience with the Shanling M0 Pro for your consideration. There is no dedicated back button, so the only way to go back is by swiping from the left. And if you're having the sleeve, which I believe is a separate purchase, it does give your device a bit more protection, but unfortunately it also hinders that left swiping a little bit, at least for me. and sometimes the swipe is registered as a touch rather than a swipe, so it's a bit fiddly and a little hit and miss for me. I honestly wish we could program the button to have double tap for back or something, or have like a dedicated back button at the top left, just to make it easier for the user experience. And I hope this is something Shanling can just implement with a software update. The icons as mentioned earlier are a little too small, where sometimes I end up pressing the wrong function or feature because of the size, so I wish the sizes of the icons were a little bit bigger to avoid the mispress, but it's not a huge deal breaker once you get a hang of it. Also, since it only comes with a 3.5mm output, you'd have to purchase the 3.5 to 4.4mm converter separately to make full use of the balanced output power. Also, the USB-C and 3.5mm connection is a little too close, probably due to the fault of the extremely compact form factor. Depending on which USB-C cable you use and also the 3.5mm, they may clash with one another when plugged in, and you need just the right size to be able to fit everything in, so something to note. Also, when I first received this unit, it had a few software bugs along the way. The USB DAC mode wasn't working, it would shut down by itself a couple of times even when the idle setting shutdown setting turned off. So what I had to do was actually reset the settings to factory, and everything worked again. So just something to note, where if you experience some of these bugs, maybe try resetting the system again. But of course, it's an inconvenience where you have to readjust the settings again to what you had before. So that's pretty much some of the caveats that does dampen the experience a little bit, but it's not a total deal breaker for me, but it may be for some. So just running through some of the function and features this device has. The Shanling M0 Pro has a battery capacity of 650 milliamps and is rated to give you about 14.5 hours of playback, and is a little bit smaller than the 1100 milliamp battery from the Snow Sky Mini and the 1150 milliamps from the Hebe R1. But again, all limitations from its form factor. And if you listen to about 5 hours of music daily, you get about 3 days before needing a charge. It can also support up to 2 terabytes of SD card, which is a huge step up from the 256 gig support of the Snow Sky Echo Mini. The Shanling M0 Pro is rated to have an output power of 90 milliwatts for the 3.5, but if you have the adapter that allows it to go up to balance, then it can deliver up to 230 milliwatts, which is pretty similar to the Echo Mini at 250 milliwatts. So when it comes to powering gears, it's the same, where it can power a lot of IEMs and even headphones, and it's really impressive once again with this kind of form factor. However, on really high impedance headphones or power hungry IEMs is where this device will have its limitations, and understandably so. However, the bass from my Fat Freak Deuce is coming through a touch stronger than when I plugged it into the Echo Mini, so it could be that the Shanling gives a bit more warmth and weight that helps push those bass notes through. But there are plenty of EQ on the Shanling to play around with, and the main interface animation is much more fluid and seamless, especially when you're comparing it with the Hebe R1, where the touchscreen feels a bit choppy in comparison. It's pretty much the same when you're playing music, but at least you get that smoothness in the main interface. Speaking about comparison, comparing it against the Hebe R1 and Snow Sky Echo Mini, they are all very portable, they all have enough power, and they have their own functions, but they each have their own pros and cons, and I'll break it like this. If you're on a budget and all you want is an offline music player, the Snow Sky Echo Mini is a great choice. It has 4.4 and 3.5mm output, has a bigger battery life than the M0 Pro, and is all analog. No touchscreen functionalities, just bare bones and straight to the point with some inbuilt features that'll take you all the way. However, if you want a bit more control of your music, a bit more customizability, the M0 Pro is a great choice at the sacrifice of some battery life, but the EQ functions just give you so much playability, and the touchscreen controls has its benefits in terms of music control. However, it doesn't have Wi-Fi, and I feel that's the one thing that the Hebe R1 has over these two, which is Wi-Fi capabilities, and it allows you to stream Tidal, but it lacks the EQ features that the other two has. And both the R1 and the M0 Pro has 3.5mm output only, so it's a bit of a toss-up. Is Wi-Fi support important for you? If so, R1 is the only one in the lineup that supports that. Otherwise, if you want more options, the M0 Pro is the most feature-packed one amongst the three. So in summary, another great alternative in the budget depth category with a very portable form factor and it delivers great performance and functions for its price. But the caveat being that it sacrifices a bit on the battery life due to its size, and you have to get the accessories which is purchased separately to really make full use of this device capabilities. Not to mention the lack of the back button and the little software bugs along the way, but if all of that doesn't deter you, the Shanling M0 Pro is another competitive contender to this space. However, this is based on one man's experience and I'm curious to know your thoughts. Have you tried the Shanling M0 Pro and what are your experiences like? Comment below and let me know. And with that all said, thank you once again to Melbourne Chi-Fi Audio for this opportunity and to all of you for watching. Until the next video, take care and happy listening.